And we have some statistics of how many people are actually using that. And the upper one is a weekday at the end of the day between 4:30 and 6:30, and we can see that it's about a third of red are the joggers, blue are the bicyclists, and yellow are the pedestrians, and I think the purple ones would be the inline skaters. And then on Saturday we have a count between 12 and 2, and so there it's more than 50% pedestrians that are using it. And the weekday count is for 15,000 people, and the Saturday count is for 12,000 people. So these are substantial numbers on a day. And
now, where is this exactly?
That's the use of the pathway.
Use of the entire pathway.
The entire pathway.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. I thought it was crowded at the Anderson Bridge, but I didn't think it was quite that crowded.
No, because some people, stay for one bridge, and some stay for longer. So they took a specific time on the pathway and had various people stationed there, so that it would capture everybody who was using the pathway at the given time. But I always see the pathway and the river as really a most wonderful 4-season gymnasium where you can do all those sports. And it's funny of how that has changed when Arthur Shercliffe, the landscape architect, when he designed the Esplanade, he was a bicyclist, but he says, bicycling on the Esplanade, that is not compatible with the landscape. So he would dismount his bike on the Esplanade. But I think things have changed and people really like to bicycle along the water's edge.
Oh, well, they do. I think that sometimes it's a good idea to have a little separation between the pedestrians and the bicyclists, and I'm not familiar enough with that part of the river to know if that... I think there are a couple of paths there, so you can separate one from the other. So there can be a little hair-raising.
Yes, sometimes when it's only one, but in many parts of the Esplanade, they send the bicyclists are closer to Storrow Drive, and then the pedestrians are closer to the water. So in a way it's like a hierarchy of entitlement. So the slower you are, the closer you should be to the water. And I think that's a nice
exactly
way
right.
of how to do it. We also have a picture here of the Elliott Bridge underpass, and the Elliott Bridge underpass is unfortunately very dark. Not just the image, but the tunnel is very dark and has often water in it, and that is something we would want to have a better situation if we create underpasses for the Anderson Bridge. And we have a rendering that was created by a professor and students at Harvard's Graduate School of Design. Pierre Bélanger, a landscape architect originally from Canada, came up with this vision, which kind of shows that this tunnel doesn't have to be a dark hole, but can actually be a very attractive way to go from the pathway underneath the heavy traffic, underneath the trucks, to the other side.
I think that would make a 2 mile swath. I'm not sure. I don't know if you've measured it. It's but it would go from the Western Ave Bridge. No, maybe it would just be a mile. But you'd get a very nice run or walk or bicycle ride out of that without being interrupted by the traffic, if that could happen. When we are successful.
When we are successful, and we are working very hard. We got the support of 19 elected officials, the Cambridge City Council, and thanks to the resolution that you and Leland Chung put forward. We know that U.S. Representative Capuano is in favor of underpasses. We have the senators on both sides, Senator Sal Di Domenico and Anthony Petruccelli are in favor. Senator Tolman, Representative Honan, Moran, Alice Wolf, Marty Walls, Kay Khan, Ruth Balzer. I'm not sure if I forgot anybody, but so we have very strong support on both sides of the river to get this underpass done. And of course, we also have a lot of other advocates. You mentioned the bicyclists.
Mm-hmm.
So Mass Bike is in favor of that. Then there is the Boston Bicyclist Union. There is Cycle Kids, the Green Street Initiatives, Livable Streets. We have the walkers from Walk Boston. We have the inline skaters from the Skating Club of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
The Somerville Pathway, the Community Pathway. So we have a large number of supporters for these underpasses, and at the end of the show you will have a chance to see where you can also sign up to express your view on the underpasses and support it.
Now, I had a question for you, Renata. One of the things that the Mass the Highway
Mass Department of Transportation
folks brought up was a concern about historic preservation.
Yeah.
I know you think about historic preservation a lot. So in terms of these bridges, what's your view about underpasses and their compatibility with historic preservation? And also, what is the process?
Yeah.
Since all the bridges would have to go through some historic
Some review. That's
review.
right. Well, the bridge was built in the 20s, and it's on the register of the National Register of Historic Landmarks, as is the entire Charles River Parklands and Basin. So it would have to be reviewed from a historic preservation perspective. And as an architect and city planner, I'm very much in favor of historic preservation, but we need to use architecture in a way that is right for today. So if we create underpasses, they need to be designed in a way that's compatible with the design of the architecture. And I will go back to the image, so you can kind of, that's a bit, the bridge is in a simplified way, but the opening can be designed with the same vocabulary of brick bands, the same coloring as you find in the bridge. And in fact, the Boston Preservation Alliance, said that they would be glad to help design an underpass that would be compatible, because when the bridge was built, there were no bicyclists. That wasn't an issue. The path wasn't even there. So we have a different situation today than at the time when the bridge was built. We didn't have the people commuting to work. We didn't have the battle with obesity. It's a different world. So I think the preservationists, including the Boston Landmarks Commission, Ellen Lipsey, expressed that they'd be glad to work with the designers to find something that we all can live with. It will require some permitting, because once you touch and change the structure, it will require permitting. The project will also require environmental permitting, and that all these permits do take some time because they are reviews, they are public meetings, but we feel it's well worth the effort to get those permits, to spend, it's roughly 10% more to add those bridges, underpasses there. So we feel this would be money well invested in the future of non-motorized transportation and recreation.
Well, how much time does it take to go through this permitting? They raised it as a fearsome amount of time.
Well, they think
in your experience?
They say it would take 7 months more.
That's a drop in the bucket.
I think
over 75 years for a bridge.
Yes, and I think if there's full support for the underpasses and all parties work together, I think was a very pessimistic approach. But I think I respect that they want to have it done fairly soon, but we don't want to make a foolish mistake just to get the permitting done, in a shorter period.
Now, I've also had the opportunity to visit Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you
Yes.
have also, but it's a city of bridges, much like our city, although I think even more intensive in terms of the bridges. And
Portland, Oregon.
There's
There's a lot of bicyclists there.
and a huge number of bicyclists and walkers, and the bridge system is really designed to make maximum use of all that conservation land along the river.
Yeah.
The Willamette, I think it is.
They're swimming in the Willamette River too.
And it's quite just
yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
It's and to see all the people going across the bridges at the various levels on all the different modes, including trains. We don't have too many trains going across bridges over the Charles, but they have they have the trains as well as the trolley, and it's just a magnificent transportation medley
Yes.
they have going there.
Yeah.